But at the end of the day, if you don't keep the people you have, getting more in is going to be more out. It's going to be that forever revolving door.
Hey, it's episode number 54 of the First Responder Wellness Podcast. I'm so glad you joined us today. My name is Conrad Weaver. I'm the host of the show, and I'm the director of the PTSD 911 documentary, now available for all first responder agencies to purchase at ptsd911movie.com. So if you haven't seen it already, if you haven't heard about it, go check it out. ptsd911movie.com. So what does your self-care look like? Do you have a regular routine to take care of yourself, or is it more hit and miss? And to be honest, sometimes mine appears to be more hit and miss, especially when I'm in a busy travel season like right now. So that's a challenge. Well, my guest today is Monica Crawford. She's an accomplished athlete as well as a police officer, and she's the founder of 50 Fierce and Fit, a program she launched to help create all-inclusive nutrition, fitness, mindset, and mental health wellness programs for law enforcement agencies. Monica talks about sleep, self-care, nutrition, and exercise in maintaining your overall wellness. This is an important discussion, so please stay tuned. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe if you haven't already. Then invite your tribe to join in as well. We drop a new episode every Wednesday, so share the link if you find this content helpful and informative. And thanks again for being here. And now, here's my conversation with Monica Crawford. Well, Monica, welcome to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. I'm so grateful that we were able to connect and have you on the program today.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invite.
So tell us a little bit about what you do, who are you, and what's your connection to first responders?
So my name is Monica Crawford. I own 50 Fierce and Fit, which is an online nutrition and fitness coaching company, and I serve female first responders. So I create customized nutrition and fitness and mindset programs for them and help work them through the process, typically with the goals of losing fat, gaining strength, taking back their confidence, and of course, being fit for duty. So my background comes in from law enforcement. I was full-time law enforcement for about 6 years before dropping back to go part-time law enforcement. So still currently part-time law enforcement. But yeah, part of that story is just getting out of a toxic work environment and trying to create resources to help people to navigate some of those situations and also be able to have balance in their life and their career.
Mm-hmm. So have you been like a fitness expert all along, or is that something that you came into further down the course of your career?
So my background is competitive gymnastics. I was a gymnast for 20 years, finished my career as a Division I gymnast for Bowling Green State University. So I've always had that in the background as far as fitness and nutrition and trying to navigate my own career and journey that way. Once I retired from gymnastics, I got into the CrossFit space. So I've been in the CrossFit space for the past 11 years now and been coaching for 10 of those. So that furthered that nutrition and fitness as well as far as getting a nutrition certification to go along with it.
So I'm always curious when I talk with people that are first responders, what got you into police work? What made you go from being a gymnast and an accomplished gymnast to, putting on a badge and a gun and patrolling the streets?
Yeah, so it's kind of a full circle moment. So I graduated high school in 2009 and entered college. And that, of course, was like the height of the recession, right? So I was debating on studying either business administration or criminal justice. And during the recession as an 18-year-old, I was like, well, this seems silly. I'm not going into business. So I went into criminal justice. Of course, I own my own business now, so it's kind of ironic. But yeah, I went through criminal justice, worked my way up through the court system, actually. So I have an untraditional gateway into policing. I started within the court system as a court clerk. I went into the mental health system and then was a probation and parole officer for a little while and then fully transitioned into policing that way.
What surprised you about police work that you didn't know beforehand, especially when it relates to fitness and mental health and those kind of things?
I mean, going in, I knew it was a physically demanding job. I don't think I expected it to be so mentally demanding, but more of that for me came from the work environment and the culture. Obviously, you have the mental demands of dealing with trauma and responding to calls and those things too. Fortunately, I didn't run into too many critical incidents that stayed with me for that long. So I'm fortunate in that sense. Um, but yeah, I was prepared physically. I don't think I was prepared mentally to
Hmm.
deal with the nuances that come with police culture and law enforcement in general.
Well, the national FOP, their wellness survey recently, they said the number one and number two stressors for people in law enforcement are those administrative things and those that cultural thing within the departments. And staffing has to do with a lot with that, and then just having a toxic work environment is one of the top stressors. And I think it probably for anyone in any job it might be, if you have a toxic work environment, that's unhealthy for anybody, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what position you work. If you have a toxic
Mhm.
boss, it makes your life really hard to live working a job 40 hours a week dealing with those same people and individuals that are making your life miserable.
Yeah. So, what did you do early on to kind of push through that and to take care of you?
So I wrote and published my new book, which has my whole story in there, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's called Thriving Inside the Thin
Mhm.
Blue Line, and so a lot of that is in there as far as those self care techniques and the things I used and teach others to use still today. But I kind of teach it as a pyramid, with
Mhm.
the most important being on the bottom and the least important being on the top, and that goes sleep, self care, nutrition, and exercise. So a lot of people get it backwards. They try to really hit the gym and try to start losing weight and pound in the
Mhm.
gym. But if they're missing the three other factors underneath that, they're probably not going to make much progress. And you're probably going to burn yourself out trying to do it too, right? Because you're like, all right, I'm
Mhm.
on the train. I'm going to get back in the gym. You go really hard for 2 weeks, and you're like, this sucks. I hate it, and then you quit. So part of those tactics as far as helping me get through that was working that hierarchy myself, as far as making sure my sleep was where it needed to be, really honing in on self-care things, reading, journaling, sitting in silence, taking time for myself, going on walks. um, Fitness is a big part of my mental health too, so keeping a consistent workout routine, but also using that ebb and flow of like, okay, I'm too tired today, a workout may not make sense, let's focus on something else. And then, of course,
Mhm.
the nutrition side of things. I've worked with a nutrition coach for many years, and even before I branched out on my own and became a nutrition coach. So that was one person that was. I always had that coach in my corner that was helping me through a lot of those things, mental, nutritional, and physical, and making sure I was fueling my body well, and also mitigating stress levels.
Mhm. Well, I know nutrition is such an important thing, especially for first responders who are on the go a lot. Obviously, the kind of the humorous thing is cops eat donuts. That's kind of I think it's kind of a myth, but I know some cops that love donuts. I mean, I love donuts, so go figure.
Yeah.
Um, but I think taking care of that part is so important because it plays a role in our mental health. Because what goes in our mouth affects our whole body, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people that I coach don't realize how much, just within the first week or two of working to slowly improve their food choices, their food quality, and then how much that they eat, how much it starts to affect their mental health and their energy levels. So it's like the small wins that you can't necessarily see physically, but you can feel them internally.
Hmm. What do you do? I mean, how do you recommend to someone, what that you're working with? Maybe they're just not in a good place. Maybe they're slightly overweight. They're working too many hours. They're not getting sleep. Where do they start? What's a good starting point?
So it depends on the person, since everything is highly personalized. And that's the challenge of working with first responders and law enforcement specifically, because everybody's experience is different. Everybody's goals are different. There's several things that will align as far as like values and things they want to achieve, but it's deeply personal and what's important to them. So it's taking that into account. It's also triaging what is like bothering them the most or what's making them most miserable at the time. Like, let's try to fix that first. But generically speaking, the way I work it is I usually take the first week, I take a look at their nutrition and I see what that looks like. I also get an idea of their background and what they're dealing with. So we start talking about nutrition. We start trying to improve food choices first and foremost. Then we try to improve food frequency. So most first responders are guilty of eating one meal a day on shift,
Hmm.
and they wonder why they're always tired and sluggish and miserable. And literally, a calorie is a unit of energy. You're not giving yourself enough energy at the most basic level. So it's looking at that and then starting to get them to eating 3 meals a day again. And then the nuances that go with that, right? Of like, how do I meal prep? What do I take with me to work? What makes sense to eat on shift? I may have a fridge here or a microwave here, but we're on an ambulance all day. So what do I do then? So that's where it becomes personalized too. It's like taking what your circumstances are and trying to apply it to that also. For me as a cop, it's easy to be like, well, here's what I do. Here's what works for me as far as packing meals and taking it with me. But of course, every day is different, especially if you're out on patrol, where you might get a day where you're running call to call and you're not going to get to sit down and eat till the end of shift. So it's trying to schedule and plan ahead and prepare for what you can, but also going with the flow when the day doesn't go as planned. So that's a really long answer for where to start. But typically, I usually tell people, try to start looking at your food quality, make sure you're eating whole foods, look at your protein, make sure you're getting at least 30 grams of protein for breakfast to start your day, and hopefully 30 grams of protein or more at each meal, depending on if you're male or female and how much you need. And then really rolling from there as far as like, these are the very basics of food quality, food quantity. And then from there, it gets more into your specific goals.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's an important thing for anyone that's, at these high level jobs, is to really focus on those things so that you can deliver and serve the communities that you serve in a healthy way. Because we know that if you're not healthy, and you probably go back to your gymnast days, if you're not eating right, you're not going to perform right. You're not going to have the outcomes that you want.
Right. And I see it a lot where, and it goes back to just not getting enough food. And we're lucky if it's one meal and it's a good quality meal, but realistically, what are we getting? We're getting drive-through food, we're getting gas station snacks and food, and not knocking it. Like, that's the reality of it. And that's where some people start. It's, well, I don't like to cook, or I don't know what to cook, or it's the thought of, well, I see all these gym gurus online and they have these meal prep containers filling their counters. Like, I don't want to do that. Is that what I have to do? I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't do that. As a matter of fact, that gives me anxiety. Like, that's too much. Some people it works great for. Most people are just like, I'd rather plan for like the next 2 or 3 days and then we'll roll from there. I was like, yes, like one step at a time. It doesn't have to be this big overwhelming thing. One of my biggest mantras is small steps add up to big wins, and you can't lose if you keep showing up. So it's just the repeated effort, one day at a time.
I like that. You can't lose if you keep showing up. I think that might be the title of this episode. So yeah, I like that. Yeah. So going back to your hierarchy, and you put sleep as the most important thing, man, tell me how important sleep is, and how important is it to you?
Long story short, if you don't get enough sleep over a long period of time, it can kill you. You can slowly die from not getting enough sleep. And that's an extreme view of it, but that's the reality of it, of a span of 20 to 40 year career, right? Like, especially if you're the midnight guy that's habitually getting 3 hours of sleep, maybe. The people who have family and kids on midnights, God, I feel for you. I don't know how you do it. When you have to flip flop schedules and be up for stuff that's more than just for you. Like, if you're a single person on midnights, I mean, fine, it's just you, but it's just so hard for those people to get sleep and prioritize everything that needs to happen when your work schedule is so upside down to the normal world. But as far as sleep goes, sleep is when you recover. Sleep is your stress mitigation. It's your recovery. It's how your body restores itself at night. So one of the main things I see and talk about is that if you're not getting enough sleep, your inflammation levels are a little bit higher in your body, which in practice, that means you may have some brain fog, your joints might hurt, you're crabby, cranky, irritable, things like that. You might have some gut discomfort and problems because the inflammation will affect your digestion with bloating, constipation, things like that. So people don't realize big picture of, maybe if I just get an extra hour of sleep, like all of these nasty issues could at least be minimized or start to go away.
And, that takes discipline to get enough sleep. Because I know in my world, my wife and I often sit down at night and we turn on the YouTube channels and we scroll through YouTube and we're watching, when I could really be shutting down my event and preparing for sleep and getting putting that extra hour of sleep on the front end, right? Because we have a deadline to get up in the morning. All of us do. I think if we learn to shut it down earlier and get to sleep, we might start doing things better.
It is, and the other part of coaching that it's not glorious to talk about, but I talk a lot of time management with
Mhm.
first responders and cops in general, and it's kind of comical if you think about it. A lot of us are Type A people. We're very structured people. We want
Mhm.
to have that structure in our lives, and we do at work. But at home, we're like, what do I
Mhm.
do? Like, I'm not on the clock.
Mhm.
Things are chaos. How do I create structure in my personal life? So that's a lot of what we do. And I teach a system of either like scheduling out your day using pen and paper, write it down, figure out what your week looks like. Or if it's like a day at a time of a to-do list, checklist of things to get done, that's first things first. If we get to these other things, great. If not, no big deal. But if you can put it on paper in front of you, I'm a very visual person when it comes to schedules. If it's visual in
Mhm.
front of you, then you can see where your free time is. Then you can see where, okay, like I have half a day here. What can I do with it to make it most intentional? And that doesn't mean filling it up with running from thing to thing. Maybe it's, okay, I have a half a day. I'm going to sit on the couch and I'm going to watch some TV. Like it can be intentional
Mhm.
rest time too. So it's
Mhm.
planning out that structure as much as you can, knowing that it's a guideline. It's not like set in stone, live or die by, but it's a guideline for you to follow. And then you can ebb and flow and move things around if things don't go your way. But sleep is the main thing of that's why I say schedule that first. Schedule your sleep hours first, then you schedule in your workday, then you start scheduling in everything else and trying to keep that as consistent as possible.
Yeah, it's I know for me, just and my wife, she has a new job. She's a school administrator, and so she has to get up a little bit earlier and longer days, and so it's tougher to schedule that sleep. But I think it's been proven that if you write something down, physically write down what you plan on doing, you're much more likely to accomplish that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is for me. I'm one of the habitual. I have like a rolling to do list that is never complete. But if I don't do that, I'll forget what I need to do.
So when you talk about self care in your hierarchy, what does that mean?
As far as things to do for self care,
Yeah, what's self care for you?
for me personally, it's all those things of keeping a consistent structure of the sleep, the self care, the nutrition, and the exercise. Like that whole picture is my self care. But when it gets to the point where I'm feeling a little burnout or feeling a little stressed or the stress levels are a little bit higher, that's when I dig into that self care piece a little bit more as far as taking a step back. Um, a lot of what I do, I love hot weather. That's why I live in Oklahoma. But I'll go sit outside, go put my feet in the grass. There is science to grounding and putting your feet in the grass as far as that being stress reduction technique. Um, Go for a walk. Again, I like to do things outside. So a lot of things being outdoors for me, whether it's hopping on a bike or walking around the neighborhood, is something I will lean into. On occasion, I'll go back and forth. Well, I'll sit down and start journaling again. Sometimes writing is an outlet for me. I think most people see that outlet as far as my social media presence goes with my business because I'm very open about a lot of things I've been through and things like that. So it's more or less for me looking at how things are going and then taking a step back and figuring out when I need more of those self care things versus what my normal routine is as far as staying healthy long term.
Do you think some of your experience and your background in gymnastics has kind of helped guide you into uh, being probably better than most in taking care of yourself and focusing on these things?
Perhaps I would say, I mean, there's the discipline that goes with being an athlete in any capacity. Typically, a sport takes up maybe 20 hours of your week. I mean, for college athletes, that's what it was. It was a max of 20 hours a week. So you have that discipline surrounding your sport because that's a lot of times that's your main focus, and especially as a kid growing up, it's school and sports, and really not much else unless you're not into sports, you're into some other activity. So I would say the discipline of it, yeah, and having that structure. I mean, I've always had my schedule's always been structured just because I've always had quite a bit to do as far as activities and such. So the discipline and the structure probably definitely for sure.
So, what would you say to someone who's struggling just to take care of themselves and to be in a healthy place? What's maybe they're getting enough sleep, maybe they're even eating the right things, but they're just struggling. What would you how would you coach someone through that? Hey, it's Conrad here with a quick break just to remind you to please leave a review of this podcast. It really helps us to grow the audience, to get it out to more people. When you leave a review, hopefully it's a 5-star review, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, or if you are on our YouTube channel, just leave a comment in the show notes. That helps us a lot to gain traction, to get more people to watch or listen to the show. So if that's you, if you enjoy the show, please leave a review. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button. That means a lot. Thanks a lot. Now back to the show.
I think it takes, for one, it takes a decision. It takes knowing what you need. As far as I'm struggling, something needs to change. Because I think a lot of first responders get into this hamster wheel of a rut where they're like, my life is out of control. There's nothing I can do to change it because work is doing this and kids are doing this and husband's doing this. And I get it. I understand that. But at some point, you have to decide that you control your life and not all these other people and outside circumstances control your life. So, and that's part of the book of taking back your control and learning what's within your control, focusing on that and doing what fills your own cup and makes you feel good. Because I it's kind of cliche to say, but you can't pour from an empty cup. I put that on repeat too. And the majority of first responders in the way that we care for other people and we try to pour from an empty cup. But I try to help people and say, you fill your cup so full it overflows onto the people who you want to care about and support and do things for, whether that's at work, that's at home. Investing in yourself is the best thing you can do for other people, which sounds selfish, but it's true. So when those people are struggling, it's kind of the realization conversation of, okay, you're at a point where you're ready, like something needs to change. So where can we start making progress? And then we can start checking off those boxes. Okay, sleep is great, good. Nutrition is great, good. I'll have coaching clients. I just had a conversation with a female this week that's in theory checking all those boxes. And she's like, I can't fall asleep at night. My sleep is getting worse quality wise. And so I start asking a couple questions. Well, is it the routine? No. Is it the supplementation? No. Okay. What does work look like? What's that stress load? Well, it's really stressful. Okay. There's the issue. So then it's more of a conversation of the same thing. Well, what's within your control? What's not within your control? Can it be a perspective shift? Can it be my coworker's being crabby today? I don't like him. He's being negative. He's affecting me at work. How can we remove that negativity or better deal with it or make ourselves more resilient to it type of thing? Because high stress loads, that affects your sleep and they all intertwine. So it's figuring out what can impact first, but it starts with the choice because nothing changes if nothing changes.
Wow. So tell me about your book. What motivated you to take on a task of writing a book? I'm in the middle of that myself, so I kind of know, it's a hard work. So what motivated you to do that and what is it about?
So based on what you believe in, call it God, call it divine intervention, call it the universe, coincidence, whatever. I was at a point last fall where I kept getting like ads, people talking about it. Well, you should write a book. And then I would get an ad for like a book coach. And then it would come up again of, well, you should write a book. Like it was just on repeat. And I was like, the earth is something's telling me something, like somebody's telling me something. But it was on my mind to do. And eventually once I found the right person to help me, it made sense. I don't know if you've ever heard of Adam Davis, but he was my book coach and he's a published author himself and has a great story.
Adam. Yep.
Yeah. So he was my book coach, and because he's former law enforcement and he kind of gets it, and he's also written his own books, it made sense to work with him. And that was when it aligned and things took off. So I think in the beginning, I'm not, I mean, I had my reasons for writing my book, but in hindsight, part of it was the healing process for myself. As far as, I mean, it's tough reliving traumatic events, and my whole experience at the employer that I talk about there was basically one long traumatic event in small series of events. And so it's tough reliving those moments. And I think it really helped me with my own healing process. As far as once I got through some of those really hard moments, it felt like a weight had been lifted off of my shoulders and I could breathe and finally put it in the past. So part of it was my own healing journey. Part of it was knowing that I'm not the only person dealing with these same things, knowing that it's a part of police culture, because you see the police memes, you see people joke about all the same things, and everyone's like, haha, yeah, that's funny. But at the same time, how many times are we going to look at a meme of a sergeant or lieutenant, male sergeant or lieutenant hitting on the female rookie? We're not going to change it.
Yeah.
We're not going to call it out, because that's part of my story. Part of what happened to me, and part of what was the big catalyst of me leaving that agency was that individual. And so it's just stuff that I've been through that I know. And again, I say that from a female perspective. Guys deal with the toxicity too. So it's for law enforcement, but it applies to all first responders. And probably, like we said before, toxic work environment is toxic work environment. It doesn't matter who your employer is or what your career is. So it may apply to more people than we think. I'm waiting to see if I get more readers that are outside of the niche a little bit. But it's calling out those experiences, identifying shared experiences, and then also providing validation to those people of, I'm not crazy for feeling this way, because I'm the one person who's isolated in my department going through this, and everyone else around me is telling me that I'm crazy for feeling how I feel. But it's easy to do that within, it's so small within a department. You're the one person that seems to have the target on your back, and you're like, why is this happening to me? Why am I so hated? Why am I such a big problem? And it happens in departments all over the country.
I think that just in working with the folks that I've worked with on my documentary, PTSD 911, when you're struggling with things like that isolation and thinking you're the only one is such a difficult place to be in. And I think so many first responders find themselves in that position. They think, I'm the only one, having these kind of thoughts, or I'm the only one dealing with this kind of stress. And when you realize, I had a friend of mine who ended up going to a treatment facility for 30 days. And when she met another officer who had a similar story, she was like, the light bulb came on. She was like, oh, I'm not alone. And that can be a huge catalyst to getting to a better place when you realize that you're not alone.
Yeah. One of my biggest epiphanies, and I can't remember how I came across this, was learning what a trauma bond cycle is. Because you learn about...
Say it again. What is that? A trauma
bond cycle.
Okay. Trauma bond. Yeah. Okay. What is that?
Yeah. So it's present usually within romantic relationships, as far as you're the cop that gets called to the same domestic violence couple multiple times in a short period, and you wonder why the victim of the party isn't leaving the relationship. It's because of this trauma bond cycle. And essentially, I may be misquoting the steps, but you start with the appreciation phase of, it's like love bombing of, oh, you're the best thing. We love you. We want you here. It's just tons of appreciation for the person. Well, eventually that starts to go downhill of then they slowly start degrading you, or they slowly start knocking you back down, where you're starting to feel like you're the problem. But then all of a sudden it gets to a point where things blow up, and then the process starts back over again, where it's like, oh, don't worry, this wasn't a big deal, or oh, I'm so sorry, this won't ever happen again. And then they start the love bombing again. So then the cycle starts back over, where you go, it's these ebbs and flows between appreciation and putting you on a pedestal, and then beating you down, and then bringing you right back. And that's essentially, I could work that cycle through at least once or twice when I was with that employer. And the funny thing is that I saw it happen to my husband again for another cycle after I left, because he went through a similar experience with the internal affairs investigation that we both got thrown into, where I left after that and he stayed. And I watched it happen again, because for me, it was, they wanted me gone. But for him, it was, don't worry, this isn't a problem. You don't have a target on your back. Don't think this is an issue or anything. It's not going to affect you. As he's dealing with like a 3-year letter reprimand in his file. And he's like, okay, well, I have this letter that says I can't leave patrol now because I've been reprimanded or whatever. And it's the ongoing like breadcrumbing of keeping you in a toxic cycle where you're afraid to get out. And in law enforcement culture, especially, they're like, oh, you can't leave the pay. You can't leave your pension. You don't want to go somewhere else. The grass isn't always greener. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, my retirement is where I left it. Like, I haven't lost a dime. You can roll it. It stays with you. You can still contribute to it. Trust me, you're not losing your pension. Like, yeah, you might not get whatever the drop back or the big bag of money or whatever the extra whatever's is that they tack onto you, like your last 5 years of employment. But I'm like, I didn't lose anything by leaving. As a matter of fact, I gained a lot because my personal health suffered the longer I stayed there. And I wasn't willing to let it continue to suffer any longer.
What would you say to someone who's kind of caught in that place where you were? And perhaps they're the only breadwinner. Perhaps they're the one that needs the job to maintain their life.
It's tough. It's not an easy decision. Leaving that place was probably one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. When it comes to, because there's other factors. There's salary. You have to make ends meet. You have to provide for yourself and whoever else is in your family. It's not an easy decision. For a lot of people, it's do the best you can, but have a plan to get out. If you know you want to get out and you know you're ready to leave, having that plan is like the first step of putting that one foot out the door of like, I found a solution. It's not here. I'm going to leave. So, and I'm not here to tell everybody you need to leave your department. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to support you and saying you need to find an employer that you are valued and supported and respected. And you genuinely feel like they invest in you as much as you invest in them. Because most departments will run you thin if you let them. Yeah, you want overtime? Great, we got overtime. You want this award for doing a good job? Nah, you're good. You did what you were told. Like, it's stuff like that where it's just like you just get gutted from trying so hard and not even getting any kudos or at least like some mutual respect of what effort that you put in. One of the astounding things to me was that within 3.5 years of working with that agency, I think I got told good job like 3 times.
Wow.
Like, that's it. Yeah.
Wow, that's challenging. That's it's been proven that if you support your people and they know they're supported, then they will work longer hours, for less pay, they will stick around, right? And right now, all first responder agencies are struggling with maintaining enough people and, filling all the slots that need to be filled. And so if you support, I talked to a fire captain down in Texas a couple months ago, and they do amazing things for their fire department, and their people feel supported. They have people coming from other departments begging to work for them because they know they're going to be taken care of there, and they're taking less money, to come to this smaller department. And so if people would only learn this, and what's it going to take, in our leadership structures for these leaders that are toxic to understand this?
Yeah. And part of the thing is too, it's interesting. I'm in a Facebook group that's nothing but law enforcement entrepreneurs trying to get out. It's more of people trying to figure out how to get out and what to do and what that next step looks like more and more now these days of, okay, well, this is not panning out. Maybe I need a side hustle, or maybe I need something else that I can, if this is like things go sideways and I need to get out, I got something else ready to go, which is kind of what my thought process was too, because at the time I was like, I've got more background and experience in CrossFit and personal training than I do in police at this point, because I started longer time ago. So I'm like, this is about to be my backup plan, which is what happened. But yeah, that's my hill that I'll die on. And what I'm trying to help with on an individual level, and I hope it gets to a department level at some point, is an officer longevity program that goes from application to retirement, of how you create an applicable fitness test, not just some random throw at the wall, hey, you need to run, push up, sit up, whatever, that doesn't apply to your job. Like an actual applicable fitness test that levels the playing field for men and women, because that's an ongoing concern, right? Of trying to get more diversity and more women into the field. working that through the process of an academy, of having a fitness instructor in an academy to work through a program that's going to help you improve those 3 fitness tests, get you stronger, get you fitter while you're in the academy. Because 9 times out of 10, you go through the academy, you come out weaker and smaller because they just run you into the ground, literally. And then have a department level policy procedure in place that has the people there to help you with nutrition coaching, with fitness programming, with keeping you fit, with having the facilities in place, the policies in place that will let you work out on duty or comp your gym membership or things like that. And having and then of course adding the mental health piece too, that has that officer longevity. I try to get away of calling it wellness. I think wellness is a catch-all that's not really proving to do much right now, if we're being realistic. So looking towards like a longevity program, I think that makes more sense, because that's the thing I like to preach of. If you take care of your people, they will do your recruiting and retention for you, because that's the hot button topic. Well, we need more recruiting. We need more retention. It blows my mind that people will pay $1,200 to $1,500 a ticket to go to a recruiting and retention conference. What?
Yeah.
This is like beyond common sense.
It's not rocket science.
This is beyond common
right?
sense to keep people around. Like, yeah, I understand if you want to learn more modern tactics when it comes to like marketing and technology and things that are outside of the first responder world. Like, I get that. If you want a video producer to make like your badass intro video, absolutely do what you need to do. But at the end of the day, if you don't keep the people you have, getting more in is going to be more out. It's going to be that forever revolving door. So it's never going to change, because like you said, those people who are inside will do your recruiting for you. And then you will have a line out the door of applicants when everyone's like, yes, this place is awesome. The pay's maybe not the best. Like maybe we're like more middle of the ground. Like it's not crappy, but we're doing all right. Like we're happy here. We love our job. Like people will keep coming to your agency forever if you can do that.
I mean, if you can help people love coming to work, because how many people get up in the morning and just dread that drive to work, right? And I mean, this goes for any kind of job, but especially for first responders. If you can create a culture around, of helping your people, that they know they're supported, that they know they're taken care of. We have your back. We're gonna give you everything you need to be successful at your job, and they know that they're going to have, the support they need. Yeah, I'll go work for that.
Yeah,
It makes it so much easier.
in the police side of things, the ongoing talk too is that we don't get enough training. We don't get enough adequate training, whether you want to call that firearms defensive tactics, investigations, whatever. But yeah, it goes on to even a bigger topic too, of just training in general, of our employers supposed to train us for the job. Are they adequately training us for all aspects of the job? 9 times out of 10, that answer is no. Where you have these outside training companies, like I have a partner I work with. His company is called Leoden, and we're bringing a Fit for Duty course, which will be my part of it. He's got proper patrol and also a K9 course coming in. But you have us, like Street Cop, like all these other big names trying to bring better training to people, but then it's frustrating because they're like, well, we don't want to pay for this. Well, if your agency is not giving you what you need, that's your other option. Or you can choose to stay where you're at and do your free local training with not bashing it. Some of it's good. Majority of it is your online PowerPoint things where you're like clicking through it, trying to get through the test and check a box. So it's, again, it goes back to you and your decision of what career, what life do you want to live? What's the quality of your product and what you want to do in your life and your career?
So as we kind of start to wrap up here, what's one thing that an officer can do to get to a better place overall, mentally, health-wise, physically, all the things? What's one thing?
Accept that you don't know what you don't know and find the help to learn. Like at a most basic level of everybody in this world who has ever been successful has not done it by themselves. They've had mentors, they've had coaches, from your greatest athletes to your bigwig business owners. Everybody has had somebody help them to get to where they are. You can do your best and try to do it on your own. If you're not ready to ask for help, I guess you have the internet at your disposal. You're more than welcome to get on Google and try to find those answers for yourself. You might be successful. You might get there. I guarantee it'll take you longer if you do. But my thing would be find a mentor. Find a friend, find somebody who can at least support you. Even if it's somebody who's like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'll go with you. Like, that's a start of like, hey, let's start walking 3 days a week for 30 minutes. You want to come? Yeah, great. Let's go. Like, find somebody to go on the journey with you, whether it's a coach, a mentor, or just a friend that will help.
I like that. So what gives you joy in what you do?
So I've always said, and this goes back to my probation and parole days, because I love the hell out of that job. I enjoy working people through a process and being able to see their growth through that process and seeing them achieve things that they never thought that was possible for them to achieve before. So with the probation and parole side of things, it was fun to actually walk somebody through, hey, I've been a drug addict, I lost my kid, to getting sober and helping them walk through the process of getting rights and custody of their child back, and genuinely hearing them say thank you as we parted ways and they walked out of my office for the last time. Things like that was super cool to me. Within my coaching business, it's the same thing of people just being like, man, I've been stuck at 250 pounds. I've been the heavy kid my whole life. And oh my God, now I'm finally 140, 150 pounds. I'm running 5K marathons. I feel better than I ever have. And I never thought it was possible to get here, and I'd never be here without you. Like, those are the cool stories. And I'm like, you did the work. I was the guide to help you, but you did the work. Like, you got here. So it's cool. It's cool to see people to do the things, especially when it comes to weight loss goals. You know, that's the struggle for many Americans of trying to figure out how to be healthy and lose weight, and just giving them the clarity and the roadmap that they need and the accountability to do the work so that they ultimately get to a place they never thought they could.
Awesome. So where can people find you? Where can they find your book? And where can they learn more about what you do?
So my website is 50fierceandfit.com. You can find a free resource on there if you type that in, and you can get my free shift work nutrition guide from there. My book is on Amazon right now. It's called Thriving Inside the Thin Blue Line. You can find that on Amazon. And if you want to get in touch with me, my main email address is Monica and it's the same as the website, the 50fierceandfit.com. You can shoot me an email, and if you want to know more about what we do, or maybe just get a couple of free tips to get you started, I do all of it.
Awesome. And you're on TikTok. That's where we connected. So everybody can, if you're on TikTok, go ahead and check out for better or for worse, right?
Unfortunately. Yeah, well, I say that because I used to have a Facebook group that I would funnel all my female first responders to, and unfortunately I got hacked and shut down. So I lost my Facebook group. So that's why I kind of leave those out there. I am on TikTok and Instagram, so you can, if those are your platforms, you can find me there too, through 50 Fierce and Fit, or you can search my name, Monica Crawford. You'll find me there too. But unfortunately, the fun ways of the Facebook world have shut me down. But yeah, there's many ways to get a hold of me. I'm also doing public speaking stuff. I've been speaking for a lot of first responder conferences across the country. So if you're a conference head or an agency head who would love to bring me in, I do public speaking as well.
Awesome. Well, Monica, thank you so much for taking a chance and just, kind of saying yes to being on this podcast. I know we hadn't really talked much before we connected on TikTok. So thanks for being here, and thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it.
Be sure to check out Monica's website, 50 Fierce and Fit, where you can download a free shift work nutrition guide. You can find the link in the show notes below. Thank you for listening and for watching. And just a reminder that you are not alone. And if you need someone to talk to and don't know where you can turn, you can dial 988 for help. Until next time, be well, take care of yourself and those around you, and go out and do something great in the world.